Hello and welcome to Hoyas in Public Service, A Common Bond, a panel as part of Virtual Reunion 2021. A few things to mention before the panel begins. Please use the question and answer feature in the sidebar to the right of your screen to submit questions to the panelists. We will answer as many questions as time allows. Full bios for today's speakers are available to view below the live stream. And finally, a recording of this session will be available in the virtual attendee hub later today. Today's panel features former Kansas Governor Jeff Colyer from the class of 1981, U.S. Congresswoman Debbie Dingell from the undergraduate class of 1975 and graduate class of 1998, U.S. Senator Dick Durbin from the undergraduate class of 1966 and law class of 1969, and U.S. Congressman Filemon Vela from the class of 1985. At this time, I'm delighted to introduce today's moderator, ABC News Washington Correspondent and member of the class of 2000, Karen Travers. This time I will pass it off to you, Karen.
Great. Thank you so much, Brian, for that great introduction. And thank you to our amazing panel. We know how busy you all are. Even on recess, you're busy. So we appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join us on this. I think it's going to be great. We're really looking forward to hearing what you have to say. And thanks to Georgetown for inviting me back. This is actually my reunion year too, even though I was 2000, because we missed ours last year. We're getting allowed to be with the ones and the sixes this time around. So thanks for having me on my virtual reunion weekend. I also want to give a little shout out to GU Politics, because this is the first reunion where people who participated in GU Politics are now coming back as alumni, that class of 16. So very exciting for them. And we appreciate all that they continue to do for the university. And also one more little shout out. I heard there's a birthday on the panel today, Governor Colyer. Thank you for not just taking time out of your busy schedule, but also your birthday, spending a little time with us today. So I'm not going to sing. I'm not going to lead anybody in that, but maybe if we have time later. So I think we're going to start off. First couple questions are going to be about your experience at Georgetown and how that led you into a life of public service, how that continues to shape your views and approach to public service. And then we'll get into some of the news and topics of day that I think our audience will be very interested to hear about. So we're going to start off with the easy one of just talk about how your education and experience at Georgetown led you into the career that you're now doing. So Congresswoman Dingell, if you want to get started on that, we'd love to hear it.
Well, thank you for that question, Karen. I look back and I had a whole different career before I moved into public service. I worked at General Motors for more than 3 decades. But I look back at that time at Georgetown, and campus was a place of a lot of turmoil. We were coming out of the Vietnam War, there were protests, etc. But it was a place that people could have honest discussions, where our professors encouraged an exchange of ideas, that we respected each other's opinions, or their perspectives, and they really taught and stretched us to really think about a lot of ideas and public policy ideas, and to respect each other. And I think that laid a foundation for where I am today.
Governor Colyer, you're next up in my boxes, if you would like to jump in too.
Yeah, so Georgetown, so I transferred to Georgetown. I'd never met anybody that had actually gone to Georgetown, but it was this amazing place on a hill. And we somehow lived in Healy Tower on the 4th floor, the last people to inhabit it. And what really set the hook for me was the exposure to lots of different ideas and lots of international work. And in many ways, so I had decided I was economics and pre-med, and Georgetown didn't really like that idea at that time, but now they do. But they got me interested in international affairs. And so I ended up volunteering in conflict zones every year for the last 25 years or so, in places like the Rwandan genocide and Syria and other places. And it was the sense of service that we're here to make a difference in people, no matter who they are. And that was that's a Georgetown thing. And I really appreciate it.
Congressman Vela, how about your experiences?
Yeah, when I graduated in 1985, I also had transferred after my freshman year, and I had the professor mentor in the School of Government, Walter Giles. And I remember back then thinking, you know, I worked on the Hill during those, I worked as an intern for several members of Congress at the time. And I remember back then having these dreams of being a member of Congress. But it's kind of funny. The funny thing is, I went to law school in Texas and pretty much went back home to South Texas and started practicing law, and the idea of running for office really never entered my mind again. I was politically involved in other people's elections, including my wife's, and really enjoyed being, you know, not out front as the candidate. And so it really wasn't until 30 years later that we had redistricting in Texas back in 2012. And I really don't know what happened. I woke up one morning and I turned over and I told my wife, I said, I think I'm going to run for this. And here I am.
Great. And Senator Durbin, finish us off.
Thanks. It's interesting. 3 out of the 4 of us are transfer students. I was attending St. Louis University and decided that I didn't like being a commuter student, and my mother and I were going to kill one another if I didn't get out of town. So I went to the library at St. Louis U and looked through the catalogs and picked out one that said Georgetown University School of Foreign Service. Well, I'd never heard of Georgetown. I'd never been to Washington, and I'd never been outside the country. So it seemed like the perfect place for me to go. And I applied and was accepted, to my great surprise, and came to Georgetown and into the School of Foreign Service, which was a great education and experience. Opened my eyes to the world, which I'd never even seen, let alone considered as part of my future. And then in my senior year, there was a notice posted on the Student Employment Service bulletin board, which said, interns needed, Office of U.S. Senator, Illinois residents preferred. And I called the number and became an intern to Senator Paul Douglas in 1966, and did grunt work as an intern and loved every second of it. And it really was the entree to my being involved in campaigns and public service. And 30 years after that 1966 experience, in 1996, I was elected to that U.S. Senate seat that Senator Paul Douglas held. I look back on my time at Georgetown. I was there much earlier than anybody on this panel, and I lived through the period of the civil rights debate and the Vietnam debate. And there was no more exciting place to be when it comes to universities than Georgetown. We were smack dab physically in the middle of this debate and demonstrations. We were drawn into it and learned so much about ourselves and about this country in the process. So I can just tell you that although my path to Georgetown was an odd one, my path to public service was as well. It all came together for me.
I kind of like thinking about that there might be interns out there who have worked for maybe one of you, who then will be doing this panel with in 20 years, and they'll be talking about their own path and how they got their start. You know, there's a healthy number of Hoyas on Capitol Hill. So Governor Colyer, sorry, this is a question for the lawmakers here in Washington, but is there any sort of Hoya caucus? Do you guys all do anything together? Any bond because of the Georgetown experience?
Well, Dick, we'll let the Senate start. We'll respect him.
Thanks, Debbie. That's very kind. That's very kind of you. I of course know Steny Hoyer, a graduate of Georgetown Law School, and Pat Leahy as well. And they're mentioned from time to time about our service at Georgetown. I don't think there's anything specific that draws us together other than just reminiscing about memories which we need not share out loud, rather than sound like we're ancient citizens.
Yeah, I think Dick's right. Once a year, there is a reception for the Georgetown graduates on the Hill. I think when we're playing basketball, that unites us, and we all cheer loud. And you know, I think we each have our own experience. I never realized I was the only one that didn't transfer in, that was there from the beginning. but Georgetown's still very important to me. I went to Mass there, taught Sunday school there. When I married John, was still trying to figure out how you could go home every weekend and do some of the things. And to this day, if I'm in Washington, I go to Mass at Holy Trinity or on campus at Georgetown. So I think we all keep our ties. And Jack DeGioia we were classmates at the same time. So that's another bond. So I think the things that we liked and have kept us drawn to Georgetown are things that keep us engaged.
It's actually makes me think of a good idea of like a, Hoya lawmakers, powerful alums section at the basketball games the upcoming season, just to maybe intimidate the opponents a little bit. A very DC thing, of course. Congressman Vela, do you have any relationships with some of the Hoyas up there on the Hill?
It's pretty anecdotal. Interestingly enough, there's quite a few University of Texas law students that were here at the same time. And so I tended to be closer to them. But from the Georgetown standpoint, Stacy Plaskett from the Virgin Islands graduated a few years after I did. And she had a fundraising event a few years back. And she wanted to know I'd show up because her special guest was Patrick Ewing. And so I graduated with Patrick. But that's about the extent of it.